The poet does not believe in his poetry. Men are ashamed of their intellect. Instinct is the name for the potential wit, that feeling which each has that what is done by any man or agent is done by the same wit as his. He looks at all men as his representatives, and is glad to see that his wit can work at that problem as it ought to be done, and better than he could do it, whether it be to build, engineer, carve, paint, sing, heal, or compute, or play chess, or ride, or swim. We feel as if one man wrote all the books, painted, built, in dark ages, and we are sure we can do more than ever was done. It was the same mind that built the world. The understanding is the name we give to the low, limitary power working to short ends, to daily life in house and street. This is the power which the world of men adopt and educate. He is the calculator, he is the merchant, the politician, the worker and the useful. He works by shifts, by compromise, by statute, by bribes. All his activities are to short, personal ends, and he is apt to be a talker, a boaster, a busybody. Will you let me say to you what I think is the organic law of learning? It is to observe the order, to keep down the talent, to enthrone the instinct. There must be the perpetual rallying and self-recovery. Each talent links itself so fast with self-love and with petty advantage that it loses sight of its obedience, which is beautiful, and sets up for itself and makes confusion. Falsehood begins as soon as it disobeys. It works for show and for the shop, and the greater it grows, the more is the mischief and misleading, so that presently all is wrong. Talent is mistaken for genius, dogma or system for truth. Now the idea of a college is an assembly of such men, obedient each to this pure light, and drawing from it illumination to that science or art to which his constitution and affections draw him. And the very highest advantage which a young man of good mind can meet is to find such a teacher. No books, no aids, laboratory, apparatus, prizes can compare with this. Here is sympathy. Here is an order that corresponds to that in his own mind, and in all sound minds, and the hope and impulse imparted. And education is what it should be, a delightful unfolding of the faculties in right order. I could heartily wish it were otherwise, but there is a certain shyness of genius, of free thought, of a master of art in colleges, which is as old as the rejection of Molière by the French Academy, of Bentley by the pedants of his time, and only the other day of Arago. In Oxford, the recent rejection of Max Muller. If the truth must be told, thought is as rare in colleges as in cities. The necessity of a mechanical system is not to be denied. Young men must be classed and employed, not according to the secret needs of each mind, but by some available plan that will give weekly and annual results. And a little violence must be done to private genius to accomplish this. Then genius is always its own law, and must be a little impatient and rebellious to this rule, so that, of necessity, a certain hostility and jealousy of genius grows up in the masters of routine, and unless, by rare good fortune, the professor has a generous sympathy with genius, and takes care to interpose a certain relief and cherishing and reverence for the wild poet and dawning philosopher he has detected in his classes, that will happen which has happened so often, that the best scholar, he for whom colleges exist, finds himself a stranger and an orphan therein. 'Tis precisely analogous to what befalls in religious societies. In the Romans Spiridion, a few years ago, we had what it seems was a piece of accurate autobiography. The story of a young saint who comes into a convent for her education, and not falling into the system and the little parties in the convent, but inspired with an enthusiasm which finds nothing there to feed it. It turns out in a few days that every hand is against this young votary. Piety in a convent accuses everyone, from the novice to the abbess. What right have you to be better than your neighbor? Piety comes to be regarded as a spy and a rebel. And how often we have had repeated the trials of the young man who made no figure at college because his own methods were new and extraordinary, and who only prospered at last because he forsook theirs and took his own. It is true that the university and the church, which should be counterbalancing institutions to our great material institutions of trade and of territorial power, do not express the sentiment of the popular politics and the popular optimism, whatever it be. Harvard College has no voice in Harvard College, but State Street votes it down on every ballot. Everything will be permitted there which goes to adorn Boston Whiggism. Is it geology, astronomy, poetry, antiquities, art, rhetoric? But that which it exists for, to be a fountain of novelties out of heaven, a Delphus uttering warning and ravishing oracles to lift and lead mankind. That it shall not be permitted to do or to think of. On the contrary, every generosity of thought is suspect and gets a bad name. And all the youth come out decrepit citizens, not a prophet, not a poet, not a daemon, but is gagged and stifled or driven away. All that is sought in the instruction is drill, tutors, not inspirers. I conceive that a college should have no mean ambition, but should aim at a reverent discipline and invitation of the soul, that there, if nowhere else in the world, genius should find its home. Here imagination should be greeted with the problems in which it delights, the noblest tasks to the muse proposed, and the most cordial and honoring rewards. Here the highest duties be urged, and enthusiasm for liberty and wisdom should breed enthusiasm and form heroes for the state. The college should hold the profound thought, and the church the great heart, to which the nation should turn, and these two should be counterbalancing to the bad politics and selfish trade. But there is but one institution, and not three. The church and the college now take their tone from the city, and do not dictate their own. You all well know the downward tendency in literature, the facility with which men renounce their youthful aims and say, "The labor is too severe, the price too high for me," and they accept the employments of the market. Ah, gentlemen, it's only a dream of mine, and perhaps never will be true. But I thought a college was a place not to train talents, not to train attorneys and those who say what they please, but to adorn genius, which only speaks truth, and after the way which truth uses, namely beauty. A college was to teach you geometry, or the lovely laws of space and figure, chemistry, botany, zoology, the streaming of thought into form, and the precipitation of atoms, which nature is. This, then, is the theory of education, the happy meeting of the young soul, filled with a desire, with the living teacher, who has already made the passage from the center forth, step by step, along the intellectual roads to the theory and practice of special science. Now, if there be genius in the scholar, that is, a delicate sensibility to the laws of the world, and the power to express them again in some new form, he is made to find his own way. He will greet joyfully the wise teacher, but colleges and teachers are no wise essential to him. You will find teachers everywhere. I would have you rely on nature ever, wise, omnific, thousand-handed nature, equal to teach emergency, which can do very well without colleges, and if the Latin, Greek, algebra, or art were in the parents, it will be in the children without being pasted on. If your college and your literature are not felt, it is because the truth is not in them. When you say the times, the persons are prosaic, where is the feudal or the Saracenic or Egyptian architecture? Where the romantic manners? Where the Romish or the Calvinistic religion, which made a kind of poetry in the air for Milton or Byron or Belzoni? But to us it is barren. You expose your atheism. Is a railroad or a shoe factory or an insurance office bank or bakery outside the system and connection of things, or further from God than a sheep pasture or a clam bank? Is chemistry suspended? Do not the electricities and the imponderable influences play with all their magic undulations? Do not gravity and polarity keep their unerring watch on a needle and thread, on a cobbler's lapstone or a switchman's turntable as on the moon's orbit? Only bring a deep observer, and he will make light of the new shop or old cathedral, all one to him, or new circumstances that afflict you. He will find the circumstances not altered, as deep a cloud of mystery on the cause, as dazzling a glory on the invincible law. Is it so important whether a man wears a shoe buckle or ties his shoe lappet with a string? Bring the inside, and he will find as many beauties and heroes and astounding strokes of genius close by him as Shakespeare or Aeschylus or Dante beheld. It was in a beggarly heath farm, it was in a mean country inn that Burns found his fancy so sprightly. You find the times and places mean. My friend, stretch a few threads over a common Aeolian harp, and put it in your window, and listen to what it says of times and the heart of nature. I do not think that you will believe that the miracle of nature is less, the chemical power worn out. Watch the breaking morning, the enchantments of the sunset. If I had young men to teach, I should say to them, keep the intellect sacred, revere it, give all to it. Its oracles countervail all. Attention is its acceptable prayer. Sit low and wait long, and know that next to being its minister, like Aristotle, and perhaps better than that, is the profound reception and sympathy, without ambition, which secularizes and trades it. Go sit with the hermit in you, who knows more than you do. You will find life enhanced and doors opened to grander entertainments. It all comes easily that he does as snow and vapor, heat, wind, and light. Power costs nothing to the powerful. I should say to them, do what you can do. He that draws on his own talent cannot be overshadowed or supplanted. Homage to truth discriminates good and evil. Power never departs from it. Our colleges may differ much in the scale of requirements, and the examination for admission and the examination for degrees and honors may be lax in this college and severe in that, and you may find facilities, translations, syllabuses, and tutors here or there to coach you through. But 'tis very certain that an examination is yonder before us, and an examining committee that cannot be escaped or deceived, that every scholar is to be put fairly on his own powers, and must hear the questions proposed, and answer them by himself, and receive honor or dishonor according to the fidelity shown. For the men and women of your time, the circle of your friends and employers, your conditions, the invisible world, are the interrogators. When the great painter was told by a Dauber, I have painted 5 pictures, whilst you have made 1, he replied, Pingo in eternitatem. Study for eternity smiled on me, says Van Helmont. And it were a good rule to read some lines at least every day that shall not be of the day's occasion or task, but of study for eternity. I have detained you too long, but it is the privilege of the moral sentiment to be every moment new and commanding. An old man cannot see the powers of society, the institutions, the laws under which they have lived, passing or soon to pass into the hands of you and your contemporaries, without the earnest wish that you have caught sight of your high calling, your vast possibilities, and inspiring duties. End of the Celebration of Intellect by Ralph Waldo Emerson.